Welcome back. Episode 33.
What's up, shitbags? Sorry, I don't know what just happened with our StreamYard there. I had to manually click all our background stuff. That was weird. Welcome
Whatever.
back. Technical difficulties. If that's the worst thing that goes wrong, that's all right. But yeah, episode 33, first one of the year. That's a great start.
Woo!
First
Every
episode of
year is a learning curve.
2025. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy, just like always. 1 year, well, another year, I should say, 2025. Shameless plug. You're watching. Sweatshirt, mug.
Mugs, get
They
yours
look
today.
freaking awesome. Thank you, Jobtown. You did a fantastic job. I mean, these mugs are actually awesome. These are like the first ones that he's been doing. He reached out to us. He's like, "Hey, we just started doing mugs. Do you want to do some?" They're pretty fucking sweet. I love them. So yeah, get yours. The website, Venmo, Facebook, whatever you can reach out. You guys know the deal. But yeah, New Year. Thank you to those guys. Huge
Yeah.
thank you to all of them. Toxic, Jobtown, Crew First, Taylor Sins. You guys listening, it's awesome. Every time, every year, every episode, it's been awesome. So enough yapping. You heard enough of us in the last episode when it's just him and I sitting here talking. So let's bring in the actual guests who people come to listen to. Bring in Mr. Andy Starz.
Hey, what's going on?
Andy, what's
How's
going
it going,
on?
Andy? Why don't
Pretty
you
good.
introduce yourself? Tell everybody a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name's Andy. Originally from St. Louis. Been in Missouri most of my life. Now living in Kansas City. I've been doing this job about 17 years now, with about a year break from my time when I deployed to Iraq. But other than that, no interruptions. I've done it for about 17 years. I've done a little bit of everything. I've worked government, DOD. I've worked a big city. I've worked rural, and then smaller communities. So I've got 4 boys, and 18, 16, 15, and 14 and 13 now. So they keep me busy. Yeah. And then, of course, I've got a new puppy, like I talked about before, running around.
Always fun.
Yeah.
Always fun.
Yeah, I've got a passion for this job. I feel like I just can't get enough of it. When you asked for my introductions and we were getting this thing wrapped up, I said that I was a student of the fire service, and I really do feel that way. You don't stop learning when you get out of the academy. You don't stop learning when you get some time on the job. The day that and this is an old adage, and people say it a lot, but the day that you stop learning is the day you should retire. And I do feel that way. So yeah, man, there's not much about me. I'm, just me, just doing my thing. So
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool, man. We'll just dive right in then. First question: where did you discover your passion for training?
So I have been blessed in my career to have some really great mentors and leaders, company officers, battalion chiefs, fire chiefs. I've worked under some really awesome dudes, some really stellar, just fundamental leaders. And when I first became a paid guy, like many in the fire service, I started out volunteer. But when I first got my first paid job, it was with the Fort Riley Fire Department. And my first captain, Wes Hill, who is now the fire chief. And I want to highlight that because I think it's important to note that a lot of the guys that raised me in the fire service have gone on to become really successful. So again, to emphasize the caliber of these men and women, So Wes was my first captain, 6.5 feet tall, just a monster of a man, super intimidating, but he's down to earth guy. And he told me early on, hey, we're not going to run a lot of fire, right? This is a government facility. You're going to run a lot of automatic alarms. You're going to run a lot of sprinkler activations, but when we run these calls, we're going to treat them as if they are the real deal, and you're going to go out there and every day that you showed up to work, you're going to act like you've been there. Right. And so that set the bar high, that we were going to know our stuff, right? We were going to know what to do if in fact that alarm goes off and it's the real deal. Right. And not only that, but it became a competition, right? We would sit down after these runs, or at the end of the day, kitchen table, whatever it may be, and we talk about it, what went right, what went wrong. And it became kind of a competition between the crew on, hey, we have our stuff together. And around that same time, I was also at the firehouse with a guy named Bob Bartholic, and unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago in a motorcycle wreck shortly after his retirement. But we had similar backgrounds. He was a military guy. He lived in that small area of Kansas where I was at, and he kind of told me, he's like, hey, listen, you can go anywhere that you want in this fire service. You can go and do any amount of class you want, especially at the time working for the government. They were going to send you anywhere. And so it kind of opened up that idea in my mind, like, man, there's things out there that you can do. You can go to these classes and for the most part, it's paid for, and so that was that spark there. But yeah, just at a young age, these guys impressed in me the need for training, the need to be ready, and then the opportunities that were out there. So
yeah, like you said, there's endless classes that you can go out and take, conferences that you can go to. There's really, you can learn a lot. So.
Yeah, and when you're new, it could be overwhelming, but yeah, there's so much that you can do. If you're not doing something, then you're failing, and that's only on you. There's so many free classes. The state of Missouri, where I'm from, the state of Missouri offers free classes. I assume it's the same for you guys up there in Canada, right? You guys are
close.
Way up north there. Yeah,
hey there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I even though I hate to say it, because the rivalry between the states, Illinois definitely does it better when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, there are not many state offered free courses by us. I mean, the actual test when you get your state certificates are free, except for instructor. But in terms of training, that's why Sawdust was such a huge thing when JD and all them started bringing it up here, and Great Lakes Hot, a lot of things bringing more local, and then the Fools branching up, and now we got the 2 chapters. That was really where you started to see it, because there wasn't. I mean, you don't have anything huge going on of those kind of classes to take after you've gotten onto the job. So that's why, like I said, I mean, we talk about a lot, especially we got a lot of local listeners like Sawdust and those around there. There's tons of local courses now. And, I think Sawdust is maybe $100-$200. I mean, they're trying to keep it cheap.
It's fairly cheap.
And that's just, sometimes you got to bite that little bit of a bullet, and sometimes even you can get your department to foot that bill a little bit. And that's where, it really opens up the possibilities to go lots of places.
Yeah. And, you talk about the Fools, that's one thing that I got started early on as a young guy. I had no clue what the Fools were. I hadn't heard of it. And when I was there at Fort Riley, Wes got me in contact with a guy out of Lawrence, Kansas, and they were running a Fools organization there, the Wheat State. And that was just so awesome. You sit down outside of the firehouse setting in a pub, you're drinking beer with a bunch of dudes and that just love this job. And I'm sitting here, a young 20-year-old kid, I'm eating at the dinner table of the greatest, minds in my mind. These are the greatest minds of the fire service, these guys love it, and then it just went from there. Yeah. The Fools organization is just it's an awesome thing. Here in Kansas City, there's a couple, they're not necessarily as active as maybe they'd like to be, but yeah, it's out there for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. Second question. What piece of advice were you given on day one that stuck with you?
Well, not necessarily day one, but throughout my career, I've heard this and have been told. But one of the things that's always stuck with me is my mental health, taking care of myself. I've had Bob Bartholic was one of the first ones to sit me down and tell me, hey, you've got to take care of yourself. You're going to see things You're going to do things. You're going to be forced out of your home for Christmas. You're going to be forced to stay over, for birthdays. And in my time in the service, all of those things have come true. I've had to stay over on mandatory for birthdays. I've had to miss holidays, and then on the job side of things, just the things that we see, no one should see some of the things that first responders, see on, I would say, regular basis. But it was impressed on me to make sure I take care of my mental health. And I say that was given to me as advice, but the honest truth is I didn't really take that serious until I'd say probably 5 or 6 years ago, when things finally started piling on and I was not handling some of these situations well. You run, unfortunately, you run your third or fourth pediatric, cardiac arrest, and it gets to you. So I didn't handle it well at first, but I started to go see a counselor. I started to get into more of the peer support stuff, and it's helped out quite a bit. So
awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, take advantage of your departments. They all have some peer support group or whatever, debriefing or whatever they have to offer. But yeah, take advantage of those things and just know that you're not alone. I know there's a lot of first responders committing suicide. So
yeah,
definitely seek help.
For sure. And you let these things go and you let them fester, you're not gonna make it the long run.
Right.
Sorry, that puppy got out.
Yeah, it's all good.
You're not gonna make it the long run if you ignore your mental health. So
absolutely. Yeah, like Brennan said, I mean, you got a bunch of resources with the department, but then you've got your brothers and sisters. I mean, we talk about the kitchen table and we talk about how you live with these people and you grow close. Like usually, maybe even before like their immediate family, just because maybe a little bit of letting guard down or stuff at work, like can tell before anybody else that something is going on.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Third question. What conferences or trainings do you think every new firefighter should attend?
That's a tough one, just because there is so many. I'd say Sawdust City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brennan's repping it right there.
Yeah.
I see, and then I see the other ones.
Shameless plug there, and then obviously into the job, shameless plug as well. No, so that's hard to say. FDIC is obviously a big one. It's important. I think everybody should go at least once. Into the job, Wichita Hot, any of the local hots you have, but not necessarily the one that you go to, but the style of one that you go to. So I think that everyone should get out of their area, right? Mm-hmm. If I only go to conferences in Kansas City or in Missouri or just, my area, I only get that small little window of the fire service. To me, the most important part of any conference, other than the learning, is the environment of which you're in, right? You and your buddies, you go out, you get a hotel, you spend, 3 to 5 days out somewhere and come back and then tell me about your time, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to learn. There's a lot of good instructors out there, and this is not to knock any instructor at all. Everybody has a lot of good content. But there's something to be said about going to, let's say Sawdust City, for example, going out to Oshkosh and being on the lake and fishing with your buddies and drinking beer, or in my case, almost skinny dipping in a very cold lake in winter.
It was fucking cold. It's
very cold. Very cold. In your ducky underwear for sure.
Yeah, it's good.
No, but to me that's important is going out and experiencing the different cultures of the fire service. The American Fire Service is very unique, but in its own right, it's also very much individualized within the different parts of the country. So
yeah. So you can go anywhere, and everyone does something different. That's the thing about the fire service. There's so many ways to do something, and it's cool that you go different places and learn what they do, and you're like, oh, that's very obvious. And you take
Yeah.
stuff back to your department that works for you, and it just makes the job a lot easier.
Yeah, but of course my way's the best, right? Your way's the best, you know?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
No,
That's-
and
yeah.
I totally joke when I say that. No, it is awesome, like you said, Brennan. Everybody does things a little bit differently, and you can kind of take a piece of what you've learned, or maybe how they do it in Wisconsin, and bring it back to Missouri or whatever it may be.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Sure.
And like,
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it's best when you can go with people too, but you got to start somewhere. So, don't be afraid to go by yourself, because you will find somebody. I mean, if you're there, you're there because you're the same mind as everybody else that's there. So it's not hard to make friends. It's not
No.
hard to get there, but I mean, it starts with one, and then having that good time, going there, having a great time, coming back to the department, especially if you're maybe close with some people there. Like, it's not going to be long before they're like, hey, where were you last shift? Or, what, I saw you're out doing something. And, oh, yeah, I was at this training, man. We had so much fun. We went skinny dipping in the lake. We got drunk at the bars afterwards. Like, I learned
Yeah.
all this stuff about, and like, oh, hey, when that comes around again, that sounds kind of fun. Maybe I want to come with. Like, and now you got somebody from your department that's coming. Now you got two people. Like, and that's just
Yeah.
how you start that kind of change or that momentum. And it's so much
Yeah.
fun. I mean, Brennan and I were lucky that kind of right from the get-go, we had each other to go to those trainings and do. But I mean, our captains, lieutenants too, when we were able to bring that stuff back, they were fantastic. I mean, as soon as we got back, it was like, what'd you learn? What can you show us? Like, it's
You're
just
teaching
great
the class on what
when
you
get
learned.
that culture.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that should be mandatory especially if the department's paying for you.
Mhm.
Department pays for you. You're going to be off. They're going to find overtime for your spot, and you're going to go and learn. You're going to go and probably drink some beer and have some good times. Maybe a couple adult, spots. So, but definitely when you come back, you should be teaching something. Whether it's to your crew, to your house, whatever, maybe your department. So yeah. So no, and another shameless plug. I've got to represent the Buffalo boys there.
There's the tattoo.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
that's fantastic, dude.
but it's things like that. You get with a group of guys that you don't work with, right? I would love to go fight fire with Hattie at Wichita, or go up and spend a shift with JD. You don't get to necessarily work with these guys, but they become your family, and you're out there building a bond and sharing mutual love for this job, right? So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Hattie's awesome. We get that whole group. I mean, it's a fun time every time everybody gets together.
Yeah, it's something.
It's something.
Yeah.
All right. This one has no context or anything. You take it how you want. This creates a black hole. But here it is. Why are we here?
Oh boy, yeah. Everybody says a lot of different things, but ultimately, at the end of the day, why was this fire service created? Right? We're not here for me or you. We're not here for padded numbers for our administration. We're here because the citizens need us. It's a need that we are here to fill, right? And so I'm here personally, and I would hope that everybody would feel the same way. But I'm here to solve Mrs. Jones' problem, whether that be on a medical run, which is 80% of our job, or whether it be their house is on fire and Mrs. Jones' daughter is stuck in the back bedroom, right? When I'm called to make a run, it's to solve somebody's problem. And so that's why I'm here. So too many times I think we look past that part of our oath that we swear to. We look past that and, oh, well, we're here because for insurance, right? We're here because this is a slower station, but I've got a new house development out here. So we're just out here really to make our 400 runs a year and make sure these guys' insurance, stays low. Whatever the scenario is. But fires happen in those houses, right? Medicals happen in that district too. But at the end of the day, we swore an oath. We're here to serve the citizens. And yeah, so.
Awesome. I like it.
That. I like that. It solved their problems. I mean, you can spin it however many different ways when you just like do the for them or whatever. But no, we are who people call when there's a problem. Doesn't matter what it is. If they, especially at 2 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m.,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's an electrician's job or a plumber's job, or if something's going wrong at 2 a.m.,
Yeah.
they're calling the fire department because they know they're going to be able to fix it when everybody else is at home sleeping.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what it is. When they call, they want us to show up and fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just your medicals and your fires and your accidents and stuff. I mean, it's I can't get my dryer to turn on. I can't figure out why my this alarm won't stop going off or what. We had not long ago we responded to a report of a gas leak, and it was the guy couldn't get his valve shut off on his camper. I just can't. It's not going to explode. The guy knew that. He wasn't calling us because of the gas issue. He was calling us. I simply can't figure out how to turn this off.
Yeah.
So
the general public, I mean, they think we do everything. I mean, I was on an inspection not too long ago, actually. It was last swing, and we walked in and we heard one of the tenants, because everybody is always, is the fire department here? And exactly what they said, and the other one's like, I think they're here to fix that alarm that's been broken on 4th floor. And it's like, nope, that's not what we do. But it's like anything, especially if there's fire in the name, they think we do it. And anything that just, like you said, they know we're handy. They know that we can figure out problems. So anytime anything goes wrong, it's like, oh yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up the generic questions that we got for you. And now we actually had some questions sent in, which is fantastic. You guys are doing great. This is the second or third one that we've had multiple in a row. So let's keep it up.
Keep it up.
That's awesome. We did get 2 from BJ, and they were great, so we're keeping them both in. His first one, I just have C messages because he laid this out so well that I didn't even want to try. And his question is, long one, so bear with us. What was the trigger or process in moving from a department that you had significant tenure with to a new one? What are some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them? And what advice would you offer someone making the same move?
That's tough. A
lot of parts.
Yeah. I've been fortunate or unfortunate. Some folks look at it as a bad thing, but I've been fortunate in my mind to work for a couple of different organizations and take a little bit from each one that I was at. When I left, so timeline real quick, I worked at Fort Riley for about 4 or 5 years, and I knew that the St. Louis City Fire Department was going to be opening up their written test. And being a St. Louis guy, my uncle's been on the job 30 plus years. I grew up knowing that, I think that's where I wanted to be. And so I took that opportunity. About a year out from that test, I left the Fort Riley Fire Department and went back home and went to paramedic school. I worked for a volunteer, but a live-in department while I was going to paramedic school. And so then I got fortunate enough, I scored really low on the test, and I knew that they were going to hire somewhere around 50, and I got somewhere in the 30s. And so I knew I was going to get on. I had a cup of coffee with those guys. I didn't spend much time there, but the time that I did spend there was awesome. And so I'm going to run on a little bit of a tangent. I will go back to that, answer that question. But when I was there, I was assigned in-house 29, and I got assigned with 2 of the guys that were my academy instructors. So right off the bat, I was nervous. Jeff Wolfelmeyer, another larger than life guy, super knowledgeable, teaches a lot of the academies out there in the city. I got assigned to Engine House 29, where Squad 2 is at, and that's where he was at. And so spent a little bit of time there, got a lot of experience in that little bit of time that I was there. 29s is a busy house, slower on the fire side as compared to the others in the 5th district, but I did get my fair share of fire experience, but just a lot of calls in general. They bang out 20 runs a day easily. And so the decision to leave there was hard, but it was motivated by family. My ex-wife at the time wanted to be closer to her family down in Tulsa. So we left, and then I joined the Gladstone Fire Department, which is an area here in the Kansas City, and smaller suburban community. Spent about 7 years there, and I didn't want to leave there. That was going to be my permanent spot. And so I was fortunate enough, after several years, I took a test and got promoted to captain, and I was able to stay in the house that I was at, just on a different shift. And I had a great time. It was great being a captain at that department. Everybody was motivated. And then some things kind of happened, some chain of events, some were in my control, some weren't. And I decided to give it up and start over again. And so, that was difficult. And then went to the Grandview Fire Department, which is polar opposite. If you're looking at a map of Kansas City, it's just polar opposite of Gladstone. Similar size department, 3 stations, 14 square miles. They run a 2-company system. Out of those 3 stations, one of the stations headquarters is EMS, and then a battalion that runs out of there. So yeah, that's kind of the background of my career. So being tenured at Gladstone and having some establishment as a ranking officer, it's difficult when you get into that position to then give it up, right? Not everybody gets that opportunity in their fire service career, and it was hard. But in making that decision, I had realized a long time ago that I had a set of morals in my life in the fire service that I wanted to live by, that I wanted to work underneath. And so, everybody leaves departments for different reasons. You guys have, kind of the same situation up there. You have a lot of movement. You guys are a lot of volunteer departments up there, if I understand, a lot of part-time departments, and then a handful of career paid departments, right?
Yeah.
And so you guys see it up there. Guys will shuffle, they'll jockey for positions, they'll jockey for paid, departments. And so you see it. But the reason I think that people leave is for a couple main reasons, right? They leave for money. They'll leave for experience. People that, want to go to your big cities like Milwaukee. They'll leave for family, whether it's going to different parts of the country or following your spouse who has, the primary job in the family, things like that. And so I've kind of done all of that. I left Fort Riley for the experience of getting on the city. I left the city for my family at the time, to be back closer to her family. And then at the end, I left Gladstone for my moral reasons. And so, so that was tough. What was the other part of JD's question though? He threw a 3-parter at me.
PJ's was, what advice would you offer to anyone making the same move?
Yeah. So for whatever reason that you decide to make that move, right? It's tough. This service is hard on new people, right? You get that probie mentality. You're expected to be a certain way when you're a probie. And, so compared to my time in the military, when you get promoted in the Army, like I was, when you get promoted, you leave. You go to a different unit, you go to a different platoon, you leave and you start over, right? But when you start over, you don't come into that new unit as a new guy, right? You don't do that, right? But here in the fire service, we treat new guys like they don't know anything. So that is tough, and that's not everywhere. And unfortunately for me, moving to the Grandview Fire Department, I haven't faced that. I've been treated, I'm expected to do the new guy stuff, right? Everybody is.
Yep.
But I've been blessed to be under leaders again. Once again, here I am under great leadership that lets me know they appreciate my knowledge, and I don't necessarily get the same probie treatment. But for me, look at yourself and your moral left and rights, your far left and right, and if you're not falling in that, when you decide to leave, you know, what's the hard, you need to do what's best for you. Right. So, but when you get to that new spot, you got to put your head down. You got to kind of mold just a little bit to where you're at, and wait for your opportunity to then show your experience, right? Wait for your opportunity to fill in where you can, in whatever you can do, right? If you are, if you're great at the IT stuff, sorry.
He agrees.
You're good.
Oh Lord. And all she did was see her shadow or her reflection. She's
I thought she was agreeing with you. She was,
yeah,
she was on it.
But wait for your spot to fill in, and fill in when you can, and eventually, you'll get there, right? Don't be the first one to say, hey, this is what I do, or this is what I know. Wait for that after action where you're sitting down at the kitchen table and be like, hey, I saw this one time at my old department, right? Is this the same as how we do it? Or why do we do it this way, right? Approach it that way instead of, well, at my old department, we did this. At my old department, we did that. Well, you're quickly going to become the black sheep of your new department, and your new department may eventually become your old department.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then, seek those guys that you feel are opening themselves up to you, right? And I repeat this, I've been fortunate, but my captain, Jason Cobb, he's been on the Grandview Fire Department for a long time, and he's super knowledgeable. And he has, in all rights, no business to allow a guy that's got a year and a half, to make suggestions on a fire. We had a really nice first in fire. I say first in, but I was on the ambulance and my driver made a wrong turn, so we were third. But 2 shifts ago, we had a really nice first in fire, and after the fire was put out, I found myself down doing overhaul with Jason, and I said, hey, I think we need to open up this window and get this mattress out. He's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And the way that he received it was, it felt good. You're able to give a suggestion because it's something that and so seek, as a new guy or someone that's gone to these departments with experience in the past, seek those people out that open up to you, and confide in them, until you've got some time where then now you've got that, established rapport within your department.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I apologize.
I'm going to let these pups out.
You're good. Actually, we'll be right back. And we're back. But no, as we were saying, I mean, I think that's fantastic advice. I mean, I've been in now a similar position, and obviously not with as many years on. I only had almost, that 3 to 4 range, but that was exactly how it was too. Is like, I would be asked a couple times on how, we did things there, but you never really want to be like, oh, this is how we do stuff, because you put it perfect that your new department could become your old quick, because everyone's like, oh, this guy wants to make it there. Like, no, it's, you wait for that ask or that offer. But being in that position, I think the trade-off that you can give, or at least in my experience, is those like probie tasks you should have a leg up on. You should be able to get those things done. You should be able to hunker down and get them done and be kind of through your checkoffs faster than the average one. And that's kind of your way to get, I mean, they don't care how many years you serve somewhere else. All they care is, can you, like for us, can you ride the ambulance? Can you drive the ambulance? Are you a full-fledged member? Because that helps everybody, then you can trade with everybody, then you can be relied on with everybody. Like, that's how I feel was my way of saying, like, hey, this is what I can give you from my experience. Yeah. Like, I'm not coming here to be like, this is how we did everything. It's like, I can take what I learned and what I know already to speed through these checkoffs and be done with my probation 6 months in instead of a year, or 8, whatever it is. Because that's how you say thanks to your officer and your crew, is how I feel and how I've kind of ran the way that I've had in my new department.
Yeah. And you hit on it a little bit, but another important aspect is be the guy that they can plug in anywhere, right? If you're a fire chief and you're hiring a new guy, right, you expect some level of a learning curve, right? But if you hire a lateral, like I was brought in as a lateral, you're expecting that you can, within reason, plug that person in to just do the job, right?
Absolutely.
That person should know, in my case, how to be a paramedic, right? That person should know how to operate inside the ambulance, or how to, fit in on a crew and do your fire tasks and things like that. You shouldn't have to teach that guy how to throw ladders, right? And so understand, if you are making that lateral move, if you're starting over again, those things, right? So use what you know and be the person that can plug in, right? And with time, whether, whatever time that it takes, you will then become established. You'll be the guy like, oh yeah, okay. We don't need to watch him throw a ladder. We can tell him, hey, we need a ladder thrown over here, and it'll get done, right? You don't need necessarily a third person on your ambulance for a month and a half when you get started out, because you can very quickly show them like, okay, I can plug in, I can do my job, so.
Yeah, very much so. That's fantastic. Awesome. Well, BJ's second question, even though his first one was like 3 questions, so we're giving you a lot here, BJ, but you keep sending in good questions.
All right.
And I'm curious about this. I'm very curious about this. BJ wants us to discuss the urban high-rise water rescue techniques or tactics.
Oh boy, there's a handful of times in my career that I have found myself the brunt of jokes. So 2020 into the job. This was actually when I met these guys. I was down there with Chad Daly and Ryan Cummings and all those guys from Kansas City.
Great guys.
Yeah. Not Ryan. No, I'm kidding.
We had to have like 3 of them on, at the same time. That was great.
Yeah. So we were down there, and I think it was the first night even. We went out bar hopping, and Chad's like, hey, I was at this bar. I ran into these guys, JD, BJ, and I'm like, what, does everybody up in Wisconsin just have like letters for their names? So, oh yeah, I've heard these guys before. They're on a podcast or something like that, or whatever. So they got a rooftop reserved up down the road from our hotel. We're gonna run down there. I was like, oh yeah, cool, and we BYOB'd and got into this hotel. I think JD met us, BJ, somebody met us downstairs, and we get up there, and there's it's pretty cool setup, and they've got this pool that runs the entire length of this roof. And I don't know, we're getting loose, couple drinks in, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I hiked my pants up to my knees, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to go stand in the water, I'm thinking, it can't be that deep. It can't be, that bad. And I take one step in, next thing you know, I'm on my ass staring straight up into the sky, and I'm soaking wet. And these guys come running over there, and everybody's laughing. And in that moment, you're just like, oh, fuck me. I just made an ass of myself. I just met these guys. I'm soaking wet. And I was the comic relief for about an hour after that. And we're several blocks from the hotel, and I'm soaking wet. Underwear soaks, my pants are soaked. And I'm just sitting there, and everybody's coming over. Ryan, hey, buddy, you good? I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine. Let me, And so the next year, when we went down to into the job, BJ's like, hey, man, you gotta keep the tradition going. And I looked for a fountain. Dude, I gotta keep this going. I looked for a fountain. The one fountain I found in Wichita, they wasn't turned on. So I didn't do it. I didn't jump in the water. But I think it was the second to last day or the last day up there at Sawdust, and we're all out there, fishing. I got the video still.
Yeah. I do too.
Yeah. And, a couple beers in, and everybody's encouraging you, So I stripped down my underwear, and of course I'm wearing some rubber ducky yellow underwear.
That was the best part.
And and it was like walking down the ramp at WWE. I'm walking there, everybody, cheering me on, and I jumped in and immediately realized how cold the lakes get up there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was fucking cold
Canadian.
out that day too.
It was freezing cold. It was freezing cold. So, but no, that's that story. I made a fool of myself on a conference, and that'll every year I got to find a lake or a something, to jump in. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, that wraps up all the BJ's questions. So now we've got Fred from the frat house. Maybe you can explain that one a little bit more. But also curious about this one because I'm cooking on Wednesday, and I want to know about your world famous buffalo chicken dinner.
Yeah, I knew he was up.
Who did the quotes?
I knew he was up to something. Yeah, Fred's my driver at Station 3 there in Grandview. Also my roommate after my divorce. So we're super close. The department thinks that we're getting married. I don't know. We bicker like a married couple, I feel like. But yeah, I've always enjoyed cooking. I've never been the cook. I can put some things together. I've always kind of enjoyed doing that. And we were all at Station 3, and I was like, yeah, I'll make dinner. For some reason I had a craving for scalloped potatoes, and I was like, I think I'm gonna do some buffalo chicken. And so I don't know what happened, and it cooking mishap. Maybe we caught it wrong. I'll blame it on that. But they say the truth is in the storyteller, right? The storyteller holds the truth. So this is really what happened. But so I made this buffalo chicken and the scalloped potatoes. So there was carbs for days, and I didn't have any. It wasn't I didn't have anything else with it. So I'll do some rice, right? So it ended up being a soupy mess. But these guys, they want to give me a hard time. They went back for seconds and thirds. So, and it was the whole dip thing comes from the next day, the next shift. I did grab some chips and I was eating it with with dip. So, but yeah, no, those guys they want to give me a hard time about it. They voted a whole charade. Fred went and bought a gavel off of Amazon and the old judge's wig, and sat everybody down on the whole shift, all the firefighters at the table there in the bay, and called me to order, and voted me out of cooking. So yeah.
But that was your plan all along, right?
I mean, I like cooking, and here's the thing: it's a series of unfortunate events, because then I did probably 2 months ago now have another opportunity to make dinner, and I had just gone out with my mom. She came into town. We went out to this really nice Italian restaurant, Casconi's, here in Kansas City, and I had the Italian sausage plate. Right, it was Italian sausage, vegetables, and this roux. Is really good. I'm like, man, I'm gonna make this next shift. And so I got there and I couldn't find any dang Italian sausage, so I ended up getting Italian bratwurst.
Same thing.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I'm painting myself into a corner here. I know this price, but so we left on a run, and I texted the other EMT that was there, and I said, hey, I just need you to boil these potatoes until they're done, and then when we get back, we'll be ready. Well, our medical lasted about an hour. I came back, and the potatoes had just gotten pulled off. They were boiled for almost 40 minutes. So it ended up being a mushy mess. And then, of course, the guys giving me a hard time. They went and opened up the pantry, pulled out the hot dog buns, and made themselves bratwurst instead. So, yeah. So I think it's official. I'm not allowed to cook anymore.
That's what I think.
It's all right.
I fucked up a lot of meals at shift.
He
Our shift does
manage
it. The
to
senior
fuck up
man
noodles.
does cooks first, then it goes down the seniority list. But fuck, when I first started, I was like, I'd never cooked for 8 people before. So
It's hard. It's harder than you think. You cook.
It is.
You cook for yourself, your family. But when you have, 8 grown men, women that are trying to eat, like, man, it's tough. It's tough. And then everybody becomes, Ramsey, and judges your, take 2 of these buns and what are you? I'm an idiot sandwich,
I had some because like in Beaver Dam it was 6 minimum, 8 max. Like I had some recipes dialed in for that, but now I'm at our big house, so there's 12 there on a normal day. There's anywhere between 10 to I think if we're maxed out we're at 14. It's just there's always somebody off, but I can't translate these recipes over. I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? Like,
Yeah.
I need to cook for twice as many people as I had already. Like, I had probably 5 or 6, and now my spaghetti's still a hit. I can make a damn good spaghetti from scratch. That was easy. You just double that. But I mean, my other recipes, I'm like,
Not your firecracker meatballs put me in the fucking hospital.
You're the only one. You're the only one. The only one.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
no, it is definitely unique cooking for a lot of people. But,
you got your normals, right? Your meals that you'd make with your family. But I'd say the easy way to feed those many guys is your chilies, your spaghettis, your big bowl pastas, things that you can put together. Those are always normally a guarantee, unless you overload it with spices or don't put enough spices, things like that. But if you're gonna do it, stick with the easy ones. Stick with ones that gonna work out. So
yeah. Start small, and then you can start growing. You can start building up. But
yeah,
awesome. I think we got time for this last question, and then we've got our closing questions, and then that'll wrap up our time here. So, what do you think is the biggest risk to us as firefighters?
Ourselves. So, this job's tough. It's tough, but here's the secret. You don't have to be the best, right? You don't have to be the best fireman. You don't have to be the best paramedic. You don't have to be the best out there. You just got to give a shit. You got to show up and give a shit, and the rest will come. Because if you care, if you give a shit, then you're involved in your own education, right? You care about your job that you're doing, but ourselves, we are the biggest risk to this fire service. Our complacency, you see it all the time. You come into work and the rigs are dirty, or the tools are missing, or the air pack, is empty. That's complacency. If those guys were to give a shit, that stuff would get done, right? I know things happen, right? I'm not here to bash, I'm not here to bash anybody. Everybody makes mistakes, but giving a crap is the base, right? And I don't think when anybody comes onto this job, when they say I want to be a firefighter, they're already at a level where they want to be better than the average citizen, right? They want to at least help. But somewhere along the line, these guys will dip back down into complacency, right? So if you start at that base and you care enough to continue improving, it only gets better from there. So.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of like you mentioned, because it's something we talked about a lot on the podcast, something I try and really keep with. But in the fire service, for many other things, we can be our own biggest hypocrites. And I love kind of how you said it's just giving a shit, but not taking it so far, and also keeping that understanding that like shit happens. And that's something that like I try and do all the time. Is your first reaction when you find an empty air pack or something is like, are you fucking kidding me? Like how did this get missed? But then that same shift, you go on, 12 runs, 14, maybe you have a fire, maybe you have a long night, whatever it is, and you forget to like sign the NARC log, or you do something. You're like, hey, we were fucking busy. This shit happens. Like that's where I caught myself a lot early on in my career, especially if you get on certain, there's certain mentalities and people that'll have that. It's like keeping that, hey, things happen, but giving a shit. If the air pack's empty 4 shifts in a row or 4 times in a month, then it's like, okay, you don't give a shit. Yeah. But you find that once in 6 months, it's like you got to understand, things happen. And that's I see the root of so much firehouse drama is that exact stuff. It's like, maybe it's 2 things get forgotten right in a row, but nothing's been forgotten all year. And it's like, oh, these fucking lazy assholes. Like it's so much of the root of that is not giving it, or people thinking that you don't give a shit because it's that recency bias. And that's just been something that's kind of really funny. But I like you're giving a shit, but things happen. Like as long as you show to work, and nobody intends to leave a bottle empty. I mean,
Mm.
I don't even think your laziest firefighter in your department, I mean, everybody knows who that is. You can think of there. I don't even think they show up to work and go, I'm going to leave this bottle empty. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just not how things happen. It's not
Yeah.
how we're wired.
Yeah. You know, and if you give a shit, right? We all know this. We all know the guys in our department that are rock stars, right?
Mhm.
We all know the guys in our respective departments that can be trusted, right? When those guys make a mistake, do we ream them? You know, do we hang them out to dry? No, right? Those guys make a mistake, and the first thought is, man, what's going on, right?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, I you know, went through a divorce, and this last year has been a roller coaster. And when I first went through this divorce, I didn't show up for overtime. I took overtime and forgot to write it down, and
Mhm.
either went out of town or whatever it may be. And I did that twice to the same captain, right? And I I was a shitbag. You talk about don't give a shitbag. That was a shitbag move, you know. Here I am in St. Louis visiting my parents. I'm fishing with my dad. I'm getting a phone call. Where are you at? You're supposed to be at work. Shit. And this has happened twice in 2 months, you know. And you know, but the first thing other than being mad that captain did was he pulled me aside and said, "Hey dude, listen, you know, you're good at your job, but you need to be careful. You're treading water." But
Mhm.
what if I was the guy that didn't care, right? I showed up
Mhm.
at 6:59 every day. I didn't put my gear on the truck. You know, I didn't check my narcs. If I was that guy that everybody's like, oh, that's that guy, and I did that, right?
Yeah.
Now people want to hang me. Now people want to
Mhm.
put paper to my name,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And that's to remind everybody, things do happen. We have lives outside of this job. But if you're giving a shit and you're caring about your job and you're coming into work and you're putting an effort in, people will see it. And so when things happen, you know, a lot of times it can go a lot different than if it was the other way around.
I think another
Absolutely.
thing is take accountability for your mistakes.
Mhm.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, like me included, I did it a couple times too. Is like if you do something, it's like and you forget about it, and you're like, oh fuck, and like oh that person on that ship did it right. Now you have to learn like, okay, yep, I did that. I took accountability for it. I'm not going to do that again. So I think that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing of learning and moving forward is taking accountability for yourself
Absolutely.
and your mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to do. It's hard to take
Yeah.
accountability. You know, it's hard to look at yourself and say, I messed up. I did wrong, you know, cause it's a pride issue. We're type
Yeah.
A people. We want
Yeah.
to have the answers and do the right thing. Nobody wants to, at least in my opinion, nobody wants to mess up, you know,
Mhm.
but it's important that when you do, you take accountability and you hope that you've already got a kind of a good foot established. Right. And
Yeah.
if you don't, if you mess up and you are that guy, you know, hey man, it's you're building bricks again. We're starting over, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
step one, laying the base layer of concrete is accountability.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that wraps up all of our questions that we got for you. The last one is from our previous guest, which was our Lieutenant W. You talk about having letters for names in Wisconsin. That's how he developed his nickname. But and his is an interesting because I don't know your experience with this or not. But his question is, what is your opinion on the quint concept?
The quick
The
concept.
quint.
Quint. Oh, Quint. Um, well, I was a part of a department that was world famous for the Quint concept. So St. Louis City, at one point in time, had no piece of apparatus that did not have a ladder sitting on top of it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Wow.
now I came in towards the end of that. They were phasing that out, you know, and some of the companies 28s had an engine or a pumper. Um, you know, it's tough. I'm not a fan of it simply because in order to operate a Quint, you have to have the right staffing, right? The Quint is designed to do a lot of things really quickly, and if you don't have the staffing, it's hard. So, but you know, the other part of that knife is it's a cheaper alternative for some of these departments, right? Some departments can't afford to have a pumper and a truck, or have a pumper and a tiller, So the Quint kind of meets that overall median. But if you don't have the staffing and you do have a Quint, then you need to train as hard as you can, train on all those positions, get comfortable doing things by yourself, because if you don't, you're going to be doing those things. You're going to be throwing a ladder by yourself. You're going to be, stretching hose by yourself, maybe. Overall, if I ran a department, I think I'd stick to the basics just because that's what I know, pumper, truck, that type of thing. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, the last part's all on you. So you are not only our first guest of 2025, but you have to come up with a question for our first civilian guest.
Guest.
Our next guest is going to be my future brother-in-law, longtime listener. This will be first-time caller. He's listened to the podcast since the start, and he loves it. Construction background, but very interested in this job and very honestly passionate about the job, even though not being it. It's kind of interesting. But we're gonna have him on to talk about some construction and to see the civilian side. We talk a lot about why we're here. And why we think we're here for the civilians, but we want to hear what the civilian thinks we should be here for and stuff like that. So it'll be the same format. We will have questions for him, and we will have a question for him from you. So whatever you got for us that you want us to ask him.
Oh man, yeah, it's tough. And thanks for making me the first. Nobody wants. I did a little research though. I know my boy JD was first 2024, so
yeah.
I got to
Good
follow.
Company.
And it's supposed to, huge shoes to fill. Not a lot of waist to fill. Super skinny guy, but big shoes. Big shoes.
You know what they say about guys with big shoes? Big feet.
Big socks.
Oh yeah.
Man, I think to ask a civilian is, what do you want from us? What do you expect from your fire department? What can we do to be better for you? So it's a little bit of a loaded question, maybe even a two-part question. But yeah, what do you want from us, and what can we do to be better?
That's exactly what we were hoping to learn from him too. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Andy. Like you said, thanks for being the first guest. It's a little bit daunting, but don't worry, it was great. You did great, and we can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you both, and it was great meeting you guys this past year up there in Wisconsin. I appreciate you guys, showing us the time out there, and I appreciate you guys for what you do. Getting this podcast going and having me on. So yeah, it was a great time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for watching and listening. Stay tuned. First episode of 2025, we got 23 more episodes this year. So thank you guys so much. And as always, don't be a shitbag.
Send your questions in. And thanks for viewing. Don't be a shitbag.
Yeah. Love you boys. Talk to you later.
Yeah.